Now the task is to select the techniques for public participation. In order to do this, you need to know about the available techniques and strengths and weaknesses of each. So the techniques are covered in detail in chapters 6 and 7, figure 4.3. We examine the logic to selecting these techniques in the process of defining the decision-making process and a schedule. In decision analysis, you will have identified the key decision points the schedule for those decisions. The key decision-making stages and the schedule for completing each stage from the structure around which you design the public participation activities or strategies. Public participation activities are planned for each stage of the decision-making process. So this is shown in figure 4.4. So each stage typically requires a technique for getting information to the public to initiate that particular stage. So often this includes a summary of what occurred in the previous stage, what was said by the public during that stage, and how those comments influence the decision making. Frequently used techniques are newsletters or reports, briefings, and media releases. When a process has been out of sight and out of mind for months, particularly for 6 months or more, like in the case of master plan, people start to be suspicious. So you want to keep the information going through like newsletters or having meetings about like what is happening with the master plan and with the process. There's a worksheet is 4.9 that can be useful as you begin to identify and organize the public participation activities at each stage of the decision making process. And last week we looked at the concurrent weapon station, different stages and the different inputs that were sought from community members and the different techniques that they were used, surveys or focus groups or workshops, advisory groups, and so on. We did the same thing with the public lands division plan of the different 3 windows of engagement, and what will happen first is the surveys, and then it was first it was actually the stakeholder involvement, and then the surveys, and then the micro engagements, and then the creation of advisory group. And these projects look pretty similar. So it goes from informing the public to consulting the public to involving the public and collaborating with the public. And in some cases empowering the public in terms of like having advisory groups and people that might make decisions and the end. So the author also says that when you start a project, you want to inform the public. So sending a newsletter is a great idea to announce the project, sending a press release saying we are doing the master plan and we will be having these activities. They're open to the public. This is how you can comment. We have this survey. You can have then invite people to open houses or workshops or anything that helps you to identify what are the key issues. Then you can have a neighborhood advisory committee evaluate the different alternatives that are presented, and then a newsletter announces the decision at the end. So this figure shows like the normal or regular path of keeping the public informed and possibly engaged if there's opportunities for an engagement, but at the very least informed about the project. Finally, you should create a planning participatory plan. So there are important reasons for preparing a written public participation plan that ensures like a careful analysis of the ways that public participation will be requested and how they're incorporated into the decision-making process. So there are clear connections between the public participation and what are some of the key decisions, preparing a plan and sending it to key parts of the organization for review and comments internally, and also to stakeholders. This could be a way of verifying that there's a buy-in and commitment to the approach. The plan provides an opportunity for management review of the proposed public participation program. This informs management about the issue and alerts them to political implications of which it might be otherwise they might be unaware. The public participation plan can be reviewed by interested stakeholders to obtain their commitment to the process and communicate to them about what are the opportunities to participate. If there are challenges to the adequacy of the program, the existence of a documented plan helps show the rationale for the kind of public participation that was chosen in the end. A public participation plan should include, at the very minimum, a description of any consultation within outside groups or individuals who contributed to the development of that particular plan, and that may be stakeholders. A description of the key issues raised by the proposed decision and how controversial they're likely to be. Key individual groups and interests likely to be affected by the issue, and whether they will see this decision as significant or controversial, and an assessment of public interest in the decision-making process. That so here is you want to document like how the decisions were made and on a timeline. So I think that that's like very important. The planned public participation activities, so that will be included in the plan. A review of points at which the planning team will be assembled to reassess if the plan is going well or if they have to change something. With the public lands division, when the students or class, we were trying to obtain surveys through the intercept interviews. The city and consultant noticed that there's not enough West Side residents filling out the survey. This would have been anticipated, and it is already anticipated that the underrepresented groups are not going to fill out the survey at the same rate, but now they're kind of switching gears and saying we want to concentrate our efforts in that particular space. What at first they were thinking more equitably of trying to target all the city. Now they're thinking about equity in the perspective of there's underrepresentation here and we need to address it. So I guess at the point that I'm trying to make is between equality and equity. So equality, we treat everybody the same. That didn't seem to be working. So the equity lens will say you need to put additional efforts in the groups that are being underrepresented. So we are using an equity lens as opposed to equality in this particular case in order to get more service from the West Side and underrepresented groups. So again, the plan should include at which points you might have to switch gears and change the plan if it's not working. It needs to include a budget, how much it's going to cost, how much you're going to put towards public participation, and the staff resources that will be needed to implement this plan.